So, my name is Fabien Medvecky. I'm an academic in science communication at the University of Otago at the end of the world in New Zealand. I think one of the main challenges for science communication in New Zealand is, as it is in many other countries, it's a matter of resources. It takes time, it takes money. We don't often have enough. One of the really unique aspects for New Zealand, I think, is also its at least bicultural, probably more than two cultures, but at least two dominant cultures, the Western culture and the Māori culture. And that adds a real dimension in terms of whose knowledge we listen to and whose knowledge we make explicit. There's real debates about how those two forms of knowledge interact and how we do this or negotiate that interaction respectfully and in a way that's enriching for everyone. I think also, like many countries, there's been much work done on the kind of one-way communication, making things explicit. There's always questions about how you might move towards this dialogic form of science communication that's often aspired to in Western countries. And that's always hard to kind of get right. So I think these are some of the real challenges for New Zealand in terms of how we might communicate science better, engage people better, be respectful of the complexities of the history of being a colonial nation. If I were to think about this kind of grand centre or centre that has competence and specifically kind of empowering science communicators to do their work better, just because it's of interest to me, but also because I think it's really important for science communication. I think the interaction between values and science communication, particularly the ethics of science communication, I think we often engage in science communication from an assumption that's not false, but from an assumption that we mean to do well, therefore it's good. But we can mean well and not do well. And I think there's a real challenge about how we do science communication that actually is for the good, not just intended to be for the good. So I think there's a real ethical question here that science communication is only starting to grapple with, about how do we engage morally in what we do. And I think there's more to be said on that. And I think the other thing I think there will be something to be taught about how we might do ethics in science communication. The other aspect that I think would be really good is how to think about science more broadly. So not just the biophysical sciences, but how do we include social sciences or other branches of knowledge. And I mean, this may not be necessarily relevant in all countries, but in some way like New Zealand, how do we might include indigenous knowledge? But other forms of knowledges too, other than just the biophysical sciences. I think that's also a really important thing. And that would make for better science communicators. So what I find exciting with science communication, firstly, it's always changing. It's far from static. And science is not static, but science communication, I feel, moves even faster because it's embedded in both the social settings and those kind of things. So that makes it an incredibly fascinating, well, I'm an academic, it's a sandpit I play in, and it's fascinating for that. I also think it's really humanly fascinating and exciting and empowering because we actually interact at the place where we can really make a difference in the world. And in a way that actually science doesn't always. For all the things that we might say about science, much of science is immaterial to many people's lives on an everyday thing. But what we do isn't. And so I think that real day-to-day engagement with people's lives, or at least the capacity to do that in a very meaningful way, I think for me is both exciting and rewarding in science communication.